Welcome to this session. So Jelena, Milos, and I will be presenting. We are from the European Commission Humanitarian Department, ECHO, and as Nishani said, we will be presenting, well, giving you a snapshot of what the communication on humanitarian, EU humanitarian aid says about adapting to climate change, or how we should take more account of climate and environmental risks in humanitarian actions. So we'll be presenting 10 minutes. What the communication says, well, we don't present today tools, it's more lines of actions, positions, and then, well, more will come in the next year, but for you to know, and then you can ask questions, and most importantly, we can be in touch later on if you want to, if you are interested in our work and want to know more about that. So let me now share my screen so that we present you what we have. So let's start. So really, we'll try to be quick, and so that we can have more time for the discussions, and for the translators, I'll try not to speak too quickly, and yeah, but. Yeah, there are some actions. There are quite a few things in our communication that we want to present to you. First, maybe a step back. What is a communication from the European Commission? It is an official document that presents political positions, commitments to other institutions of the EU, but it is also a public document that then is available to all, that sets a position. And on humanitarian aid, one communication was published last March, and really the idea behind was to show a commitment to humanitarian principles, the same principles in a new environment, in a new challenging world, with climate and environment as new features, as a crisis that we have to take account in the way we work. So adapting our work. What the communication, can you see now the screen, the next slides? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see your notes too. So we can see, maybe if you can enlarge them, because you can't see them so well.
Let me do it like that. Yeah, okay. So what the communication says specifically on climate and environment, and we'll develop that more in next slides. We need to advocate for more climate funding, climate adaptation funding. Then we need to prepare better for response, disaster preparedness. We need to anticipate more, linked to preparedness. Anticipatory action is a motto now. And we also need to reduce our environmental footprint when doing humanitarian aid. This last point is linked, but we see it as a separate work stream in our work, because it requires a specific approach to our work. Over to you, Jelena, on this slide.
Thank you, Gaëlle. So on the next slide, just as a bit of, if you can move to the next slide, Gaëlle. Like, all I can see is what the communication says.
I'm moving the slides, but it seems that it's not moving with me.
But okay, I wanted to first, while it moves, while technology catches up with us, we just wanted to say a few words first on how disaster preparedness, which is what we work on, how it relates to climate resilience, climate change adaptation. In this context, we see disaster preparedness as an adaptation measure, We are fully aware that disaster preparedness is also addressing other risks other than climate-related, so natural or man-made. But here, we really want to focus on disaster preparedness being as a DG ECHO, as an EU humanitarian aid contribution to climate resilience. With the kind of, we have two main actions here. We want to promote a risk-informed approach to operations, so in combination with needs-based approach. And here we really think about how to anticipate risks, how to assess climate-related risks. And I'm sure you know better than you know better how in the field climate-related assessments are difficult to come by, or are just being developed, or are complex. So how do we make this simple and integrated in our daily operations? As well as, of course, we want to mainstream more disaster preparedness, including anticipatory action. What Gaëlle says, it's the motto now in DG ECHO humanitarian operations, as a response to climate change. Now, this is also echoed in the European Green Deal, specifically the EU adaptation strategy, which came out recently also, where we include disaster preparedness and anticipatory action as a way to promote climate resilience in EU's external cooperation. So, that being said, we move on to some more actions that we are doing. Gaëlle, I don't know if you have if you can move over to the, it's not working.
Well, I am on this other screen,
okay.
On the other slide. So I think I'll end the slideshow to start it again. But yeah, if you manage,
I'll continue. Yeah. So one of the main actions that we're doing in the communication is really advocating. We, as a humanitarian actor, we want to advocate with our development and climate colleagues for getting better and more climate finance and development finance for climate adaptation and resilience. So we work closely with them. We bother them often, and we try to keep this issue on the agenda, as well as on the agenda of leading up to COP26. As you know, the climate conference is happening early November, and there are already many meetings in many sectors and initiatives that we are following. And a few examples is, of course, the Risk-Informed Early Action Partnership, which is a valuable initiative to scale up anticipatory action and early warning, early action initiatives by countries. So we are following this, and as well as more technical issues, like, for example, the Anticipation Hub, which is looking at evidence and ways to scale up anticipatory action, because we still see it as something that needs to be rolled out more, that is used in kind of a project-based environment, but it needs to be really mainstream, at least in the humanitarian aid operations of the EU. So, Gaëlle, I'm over to you on the Nexus.
Thank you, Jelena. Can you see the slide or not?
Yeah. Well, not really. Well, yes, now we can see. If you can move over, I can see that. But Mirella is offering a kind lifeline that she can go through the slides. If that's easier for you, because we're having some, it looks like there's a delay in what. So Mirella will share our slides with our slides with you.
Yeah, that would be good. Really, Mihaela, if you could do that. So Nexus approach, why we want to put a focus on that. So Nexus, why we think that as a humanitarian donor and with humanitarian actions, there's a limit to what can be done in addressing climate and environmental degradation in a humanitarian operation. We need to work closely with development actors, and for that, we are at the moment in this phase where we are influencing, working very closely with our development counterparts to make sure that the next year's programming that they are working on, those colleagues in EU delegations and in this international partnership department, making sure that climate change really becomes a key element of the country programs, but also regional programs. This is climate change. This it means working more on disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness, but also environmental aspects. I didn't mention in the first presentation, but now this is also something that we are trying to make sure that development cooperation will address, and that humanitarian action can complement. And we are looking into a specific country or regional initiative, really promoting climate and environmental resilience. And the Horn of Africa is probably one area in which we will focus and try to showcase what can be done together as humanitarian development to address climate and environmental issues. And what else can I say around that? Well, this Nexus approach, humanitarian development, is part of this disaster preparedness guidance that we have just published. We're now disseminating and rolling out this approach and try to make sure that what is done in humanitarian programs can be then followed up or complemented by an approach with institutions, so that development take on the works that needs to be done in capacity building of institutions, for instance. Another element that is important, that is increasingly important, is displacement related to disasters and climate change. So our interventions increasingly promote preparedness for displacement. And you will see that in our DP, disaster preparedness guidance, there's this new emphasis. And we also are supportive of the work of the platform on disaster displacement, this PDD, that plays an important role for coordination, pushing for an agenda. Now the EU will be part of the chairmanship. Well, we'll be chairing this platform in next year. So we want really to make sure that there's more done in this front too. Jelena, over to you for the next slide. If you can move, Mirella.
Thank you. No, I think Mirella is good. If you can go back, I think we need to go back that one, this mainstreaming into humanitarian aid policy. But in the meanwhile, I've also dropped a link in the chat to the disaster preparedness guidance. That's sort of a fresh document, fresh policy from DG ECHO that you can look at. And thank you, Mirella, for scrolling to this and helping us. So just a few quick words on what we're doing with disaster preparedness and risk-based programming. So we're trying to mainstream this in all humanitarian action, so in the wider humanitarian aid budget, but also we have a dedicated disaster preparedness budget line which tries to address these priorities like anticipatory action, like greening as well, in countries and regions. So that's one action that we're rolling out, and then of course climate-related expenditure under EU humanitarian aid. We know it's not being tracked. It's a voluntary thing. It's not. It's something new that we want to see. What are climate-related actions? How are we implementing them? Basically, also to monitor what we've said, what we'll do in the communication. So one is through this sort of using the revised resilience marker, which is in use by ECHO partners and our staff to look at, okay, which projects are addressing climate resilience, which ones are undertaking anticipatory action. So that's work under progress. And then going over to the next slide, I think that's you, Gaëlle. Over
Yes.
to you.
That's a short presentation of this linked but separate work stream that we are on, greening of humanitarian aid. Humanitarian donors and actors in this field should lead by example if we want to move on and address this climate and environment crisis. We have a phased approach as ECHO, which was presented to partners, for which we can send you links as well, or we can send you later on documents. And this approach sets minimum requirements on partners when implementing in the field, when implementing humanitarian actions. And this is a phased approach, so we can't just impose new ways of working, new requirements from day one, but this is a progressive approach where progress and where in which your voice counts and which will not be imposed on you. There is currently a dialogue with partners to make sure that we are going in the right direction together, and what partners are working on also is reflected in what a donor can support. And our initial tools to partners at the moment are and soon to be released are training and a set of good practices in this field, and more will come. And well, obviously we can't present more, but if you have questions on that, we are happy to liaise with you later on. And I mentioned field action, so what is in humanitarian aid, but also what is important and it's we know and we support what partners are doing in changing the organizational structure and greening more the processes. We are doing it also at our side. So in our field, ECHO field offices, but also at headquarters, the whole commission is working on greening processes and offices too, as part of the European Green Deal that Jelena mentioned. And yeah, I think I'll stop here on that. And now, if we can go to the last slide to open up a discussion. We've highlighted a few points that we would like to discuss with you. First, the funding. That's always coming from a donor, a point that is of interest to all. There's no increased budget for addressing climate and environment issues. We want to focus on qualitative aspects at the moment, but for sure we as a donor need to support new ways of working, and there might be a bit of a shift or some more money made available for technical assistance, for instance, stuff like that. But in principle, no big new funding is announced in this communication. A second point to be highlighted is the fact that local actors' preparedness and capacity building to be effective first responders is central to our strategy on climate and environment. So you'll hear that more and probably not directly, but not direct funding, but a focus of our actions will be put on that. We mentioned Jelena focused on anticipatory action. This needs to be, of course, put forward, but also there should be this balance with response and with how we have to react as well. And we all know this is difficult to push for one way, and we don't want to leave the other ways of working behind. An important element we'd want to learn from you, we mentioned it on greening, but on the rest too, there are those studies from OCHA, ALNAP at the moment. We are engaged and want to learn more from you, so that as a donor we can be better serving this and adaptation of our practices. And on greening, but not only, on climate as well, we want to be aligned with other donors and other donors, meaning also with you partners. So there's a need for us to be really connected, and this is we see that this today is a good opportunity, and because we as a conclusion maybe we want to say that we find it difficult to change things quickly, and we all know that going to this new this preparedness, anticipatory way of working needs a change of mindset, and this cannot happen overnight. So we all have to have that in mind. And so I'll stop here. We would really value your contributions. So over to you for a quick debate.
So yes. We can, there's some activity in the chat. Maybe if you can just put your name in the chat and we'll give you the floor. Just say where you're coming from and what your question is or your comment, and we'll go from there. There's some questions, for example, from a user named iPhone. So if you'd like, you could speak. We have some time for live interaction.
So we have 10 minutes. And there's one question from Ring from South Sudan.
Yes.
How ECHO strengthen local community resilience, or how does it work with local actors where possible? This was a question asked in the first round, and well, as we said, really strengthening community resilience is a key element of our work. Although we have rules, financial rules, process rules that prevent us from directly providing funding to local actors, we working with European humanitarian partners also means that the implementation is done with local actors, community-based actors, and then there's more work that is done towards capacity building, we think, and we'll find means to pilot more in that sense, and make sure that there's more direct access, and really this capacity building of first responders is really part of our approach. So nothing really concrete I can tell you, but there's a commitment.
Along those lines, Gaëlle, there is a question from Madani Relief Organization, but it's more for ICVA. Whether ICVA is trying to train local NGOs in the region. I'm not sure if this is, if ICVA colleagues could respond. And then in the meanwhile, while you're preparing to take the floor, there is also a question from Stephanie for latecomers, what the session structure was. So just a brief catch-up. We went through the communication on humanitarian aid, so which is a recent policy document from the European Commission on the humanitarian aid, and we focused on environment and climate considerations. And now we're just having a discussion. So we posted some links in the chat. We can repost them.
From ICVA side, I can quickly give an answer to the question asked. We are increasingly looking at the climate change, and that's also the subject of this annual conference. And we'll engage more in the future. So in the future, we'll explore some of the possibilities how to concretely support NGOs, national and local actors on the ground on this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for answering. We see that, yeah, there are more questions on local actors. Well, this is the tricky point, because as I said, we have our current rules that have not changed, to be fully transparent, but there's this commitment to work more directly with local actors, so more directly on localization agenda as per the grand bargain. There's not much we can do to bypass in European NGOs or organizations, but putting more emphasis on the work that is directly done in the field, and giving more freedom of action is something that we are, as I said, looking at with piloting more of these actions. So more will come in the future. We are not in the lead on that, but we think that what we are now doing more on disaster preparedness, capacity building of local first responders will help also in this way. So I'm afraid not much more on that. There's a new question. Is there any flexibility for ECHO in relation to this systemic policy that bars national NGOs from receiving EC funding? There's a regulation. There's a legal document that we use that really, well, is an old one from 1996 that we think that if we change, and that really says we work with European organizations, because the EU budget, well, there's we have to make sure that the money is used by European counterparts. That's the initial idea behind. But this regulation is also very strong on humanitarian principles, on the way we want the aid to be impartial, neutral, independent. And we think that if we open up this regulation with changes, those humanitarian principles may be put at risk. So there are regular assessments about this regulation and how to change it, and it is at the moment the way is not to change it, but to go over this regulation to make sure that we commit to localization. I know from a local perspective it might be difficult to understand, but yeah, legal aspects are sometimes constraints on our work, but we try and go beyond.
Is there any other questions or comments, maybe just leaving aside this quite important issues of local actors on climate risks, environmental degradation? How in the field, how are you putting or addressing this in your work? Are you working on any risk assessments? Would you be able to share any experiences with us? Sorry to turn back the floor on you.
I guess, yeah, the issue of localization is the one that is still in your mind. But with the pandemic, there's even more realization that really making this, having those risk assessments, overall, multi-risk assessments here, not only talking about climate and environment, but also risks of more tensions, conflicts, is something that also can be done and should be done by local actors. So before going for direct funding, also really building this capacity on this risk analysis and making sure that the knowledge, really, the local knowledge goes to and is injected in implementation in the response plan, then is really key at this stage. Any other comment? What we said maybe to the first group, and we can say to you, is that we are, because we want to learn from partners, we're really open to engage more with you. So you will have our contact details, and please feel free to contact us. We can go together through the various actions behind the communication and tell you more in more detail what is planned by ECHO.